Hello, my name is Marquita Adams, and I'm a program specialist with the Department of Children's Services in Tennessee. My topic will be post-adoption services, strength, not stigma. Today, we'll have my introduction. We'll go over the PICO statement, the literature review, the intervention and methodology, the results, next steps, and the impact the MPOD had on me. So, a little bit about me. I've been with the Department of Children's Services for 11 years. Currently, I'm a child and family service reviewer. I've been in this position for 2 years. Previously, I was a post-adoption subsidy specialist. I did that for 4, and also a juvenile justice case manager, and I did that for 5 years. So, next is my PICO statement. When I was accepted into the MPOD program, I had one topic, and as the Fresh Prince says, my life got flipped turned upside down. But with that, it was my ARP topic. So I had to go back to the drawing board and identify what other things or topics my agency needed. So with that, we finally came up with the PICO, and it's this. If therapists receive and utilize information on what is needed to ensure that families of youth who are diverse racially and ethnically participate in post-adoption services that are more culturally competent, age-specific, user-friendly, and accessible, what therapists perceive that more families will show an interest in and access those services, ultimately with more families participating in services. So just to give a couple of definitions, I would like to define what culturally competent means. According to the Child Welfare League of America, cultural competence is the ability of individuals and systems to respond respectfully and effectively to people of all cultures, classes, races, ethnic backgrounds, sexual orientations, and faith or religion, in a manner that recognizes, affirms, and values the worth of individuals, families, tribes, and communities, and protects and preserve the dignity of each. When speaking of age specific, this means things are prepared specifically for the age of the child it is targeting. User-friendly is the information clearly on the website. And do all links work on the website? As far as accessible, are the services in close proximity? Are they offered in multiple locations at multiple times? Are the services in-home or are they online? With my literature review, according to Hardinger, Saunders, and Trotted, the needs of adopted children and families emerge over time. This renders post-adoption service time from the time frames of 3 to 6 months as unrealistic. So families are underserved within that 3 to 6 time frame. And then post-adoption services are crucial to long-term health and well-being of adoptees and adoptive families. Lower income families are less likely to be underserved. This is because the families are familiar with the services. They're familiar with reaching out to the states, so they're more than likely to reach out again if they adopt. Higher income families are ashamed to access the services. There's a shame in associating with accessing the services from the state. But of the services that are most commonly used and accessed, we have counseling, mental health services for the child, financial assistance, parent support groups, and parent training. So for my intervention and methodology, we had, this was completed in July of 2023. And at the time, I had 5 post-adoptions master's level therapists. All of them were Caucasian, and they had been employed with the state from 1 to 8 years. So some of the findings from the therapists: the demographics of the staff do not represent the population of children and families that they serve. So one part of the state is heavily populated. It has a higher percentage of African-American youth, and the provider is a Caucasian woman. So the service provider does not meet that population demographic. Also, they believe it will be beneficial to connect with therapists from different cultural backgrounds in the community. And then also, more professional development is needed for post-adoption therapists. Some of the professional development could be offered as continuing education, on-the-job training, and stipends to attend conferences. So some of the professional development courses that could be had is learning new modalities. So once you learn a new modality, learn how it can be used in different cultures. Also, be cognizant of seeking out professional development that is created by people of color. Another thing to be noted is that the satisfaction survey should be analyzed by race. So with that information, we will be able to understand what services the population needs the most, and then we could try to specify or put those services in place for that population. Also, I had surveys that went out. In the state of Tennessee, we had 25 people that participated in services, in post-adoption services, at the time of this survey. The population that we were looking at are families that adopted any child from the time period of October 1st, 2021 until September 30th, 2022. So once again, there were 25 families that were identified and only 5 completed the survey. The next part, we had a survey that was completed nationwide. It was sent out through Family Risings, thank you. And we had 46 correspondents who completed the survey. First, I'll discuss the information from Tennessee. From Tennessee, we had 4 white women, 1 African-American woman who participated in the surveys, none identified as Hispanic. In the findings, 3 of them were aware of post-adoption services, and 2 of them have not heard about post-adoption services. 2/3 of them were notified by the adoption staff, and then 1/3 was notified by post-adoption services from an informational event. All families had a little to medium knowledge of the services, noted that they know a little bit about what's going on, but they know that there's more. And then they know some things, but they want to get more information. And then also the information was given to them abruptly because they were trying to finalize the adoption, so they did not have more information about the services. At the time of the survey, 4 families were not participating in post-adoption services, while 1 was participating in post-adoption services for exactly 1 month at the time of this survey. According to the 1 person who completed this part of the survey, she believed the services were respectful of cultural values and beliefs because she felt respected. She believed the services were easy to use because they were easier than the survey. She believed the services were age-specific for their child. The therapist interacts with her child at her level. And she believed the services were accessible because they were either at home or they were provided by phone. As far as the 4 families that have participated in and completed post-adoption services in the past, and then 1 had never participated in post-adoption services. The average length of services was 6 months, and then 1 person had participated less than 6 weeks. The 1 person that did not participate in services, she didn't need the services before, so she didn't need them afterwards. After she adopted, I'm sorry. Next, we'll discuss the findings from the national surveys. Once again, there were 46 total respondents. 31 of them were adopted parents, and 4 of them had adoptions that were not yet finalized, and the other 22% were birth parents, foster parents, kinship parents, legal guardians, or another percentage that did not meet any of the above categories. I received responses from 15 states. We have Alabama, Colorado, DC, Florida, Kansas, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, New Jersey, North Carolina, Ohio, Tennessee, Virginia, and Wisconsin. So with this information, most of the information came from Southern and Midwest states. The demographics of the people that completed the survey, we had 77% that were white, non-Hispanic, 10% African-American, 7% some other race, but they identify as Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, and then 3% American Island or Alaska Native. 93% were non-Hispanic, and 7% were Hispanic, and 97% were female. So we asked the question, how did you hear about the services? 65% of the agency staff, 65% heard about the services from the provider agency staff. 40% heard about the services through other adoptive parents. 30% heard about them through searches on their own through Google. And 25% heard about the services through adoption conference or workshops. You may notice that the information has a total over 100%, but this is due to the fact that parents can choose multiple items. And some of the other ways that were identified were recruitment events, posters, or even calling their local agency. So, what services did the families believe that they needed? Trauma therapy, trauma-informed parenting strategies, grief therapy, transracial parenting, managing contact with birth families, mental health and medication, alcohol and drug usage, exposure, and also, where can I even find these services at? When it comes to the grief therapy, people are wanting to discuss the child being removed from the home, whether it is a young child now that has been in their home for years, wanting to discuss the adoption process. And then as far as transracial parenting, adopting a child outside of the race that you are. So this slide is discussing what services were you recommended for, or were you even recommended for services at all? 17% were recommended by the adoption agency for services, and 100% of them participated in those services. 39% were recommended by an organization other than the adoption agency, and 89% of them participated in services. 48% were never recommended for post-adoption services. Family therapy and individual therapy were the top services that people participated in. 83.3% participated in both of those. And then we had 66.7% that participated in education and training. And then we also had some people that participated in resource referrals or support, and that was at 58.3%. When it comes to the participation in services, we had, once again, 39% that are currently participating in services. And they've been participating in services for 3 to 4 years. That is the average length of time. And the main services that they're participating in, family therapy, individual therapy, and educational training were the most commonly used. We asked the people, are the services accessible? 89% believe that they were, because the services were available in person, via telehealth, or virtually. And 56% said that the services were available by phone. When noted, they said that everyone is understanding, they're working with a competent provider, and they help the children connect with their cultural values. When it comes to the cultural values and beliefs, 89% reported that services were respectful of their cultural values. 11% reported that the services were not respectful to their cultural values and beliefs. And then the service providers the 11%, one person noted that the service providers do not always have the appropriate knowledge and experience. So that's why they believe that the services were not respectful to their cultural beliefs. And once again, I apologize. The 89% that said that the services were respectful were due to everyone being understanding. They were working with a competent provider, and then also they helped the children connect to their cultural values. Were the services easy to use? 69% reported that the post-adoption services were easy to use because the services were readily available, and they received access on how to access the services by reaching out. Also, once the services were set up, they only had to show up. 33% believed that the post-adoption services were not easy to use because services were hard to find, and without a caseworker, it would be difficult to process. And then also, the services didn't really talk about adoption. They were more counseling and intervention, not really specific to adoption. Where We asked, were the services age specific? 44% believe that they were participating in age specific services. Play therapy was in place for some younger children, and individual therapy was in place for older children. 56% believe that they were not participating in age-specific services because the services were providing just general services, once again, such as individual therapy or family therapy that was not specific to the child. Were their services accessible? 33% believe that they were because the services were virtual, in-home, or in close proximity. 33% believe services are a little easy to access, and then 33% believe that the services are not easy to access, and this is due to the wait list being too long. As far as the wait list, it was noted that sometimes the wait list can be at least 6 months before they're able to access the services, or the services were also too far away. So the reason that some families did not participate in services, families just weren't aware of what services would be helpful. They couldn't find the right fit for the services, or no post-adoption services were available in their area. I also completed a fact sheet, and on the fact sheet, it will have information about Tennessee's numbers. Earlier, I spoke about only 25 families participating in post-adoption services in our state during the time period of October 1st, 2021 to September 30th, 2022. At that time, 995 children exited custody. So we only had 25 that participated in services. And one thing that was noted is that the earlier we put the services in place, the less likely we will have to continue. We want to be more proactive instead of reactive. And then also just trying to make sure that we normalize the services as being a strength and not a stigma. Also, there's information of a vetting criteria that I completed on 12 states, and that's also noted on the fact sheet. So my next steps, I'm going to share these results with my agency as well as our post-adoption service provider. So the impact the MPOD had for me, I stepped out of my comfort zone. Even when I first thought about applying for this, it is something that I never would have thought about. So that was a good thing. Speaking to build others up and not tear down. This is more so personally and not professionally, but learning to be more strengths-based when it comes to my personal life. I have an increased confidence in making decisions. I was able to network. I met so many people that I feel as though now I'm able to connect with them outside of just this. So that was a great thing. And also patience. Once again, when I first started this program, I thought of it as just a way for me to build my resume. But it taught me that timing is everything. I appreciate knowing that sometimes it's just better to wait than to rush things. And the timing for me to participate in this program was amazing because everything just went so smoothly with this. So, in the words of Kevin Brodus, I would like to say, last but not least, I want to thank me. I want to thank me for believing in me. I want to thank me for all this hard work. I want to thank me for having no days off. I want to thank me for never quitting. So thank you, MPOD, for this opportunity. Thank you.